Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. Veterans Day turns our thoughts to the treatment of veterans in our country. Although perhaps they deserve always to be considered, Henry Hailstock, who comments for this program, will explain his thoughts to us. As the cold weather begins heralding winter, hospitals have to be prepared for communicable diseases, including influenza. Dr. Kevin Smothers, the Chief Medical Officer of Adventist Healthcare Shady Grove Medical Center, it's a new name, will review the guidelines to keep everyone safe. The November meetings of the League of Women Voters reviewed programs for children at risk in Montgomery County. Linna Barnes, president for the League, will explain. The unique tour of the Antietam National Battlefield at the beginning of December is a highlight of the season. Dr. Barry Thompson, a docent at the National Museum of Civil War Medicine, will tell us all about it. Welcome, Henry. It's always nice to have you here on the show.
It's nice seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So talk to me about Veterans Day.
Well, first of all, to give you a little history, the Veterans Day, which was called Armistice Day, started in 1919. The name was changed to Veterans Day in 1954. And for people, they asked for people to really commemorate and show that they are true Americans and are proud to be Americans, to display their flags out front. And really, that's what most people do. Veterans Day really got the celebrations going under and having all these national celebrations after 9/11. Okay, but what we fail to remember and understand that veterans are going through a lot when they come back home.
It's true. Veterans have so many challenges after having served their country, you know, and they come home and they have various needs. And as a community, what do you see are some of those needs that we need to help with?
Well, let's just talk about the able people coming back, trying to get their jobs back, which is a problem. Really trying to get full health care, which is seems to be a problem, and really housing really is an issue too. And in some cases, really getting the proper pay, which is the compensation, which is also a problem. But let's talk also about those who have certain disadvantages when they come back.
Or disabilities as well, the challenges of reintegration because of some physical or mental issues.
Situations, getting the timely, proper care. I know recently you've heard in the news where people have waited 2 years before they actually got to be seen, another 6 months or maybe longer after being seen to have follow-up care, and that's not acceptable, period.
No.
I know if it would happen to me just on a regular basis, I would really have problems and issues. Just imagine what these veterans have. I'll give you one example. I have one friend who's a veteran who has some mental issues that he needs to go back on a regular basis to be taken care of. He has to wait 6 and 7 months before his next appointment. That's not acceptable.
Outrageous.
No,
that
I
really
know.
is.
And it really, one thing that's always struck me about the VA hospital system crisis, it really is a question of funding. And that's what really concerns me, that the hospitals weren't, the administration just wasn't given enough money to hire the staff to take care of it. And that just strikes me as such a failure of our country not to recognize that and provide the funds that are needed.
That should be the utmost reasons for funding, and that should be primary on Congress's list, which is not. But let's forget about the additional funding. The money that we have now, you look at the administrative nightmares that you hear about over the country for VA hospitals. It's ridiculous. I mean, they're not handling the proper paperwork, the proper allocations of funds, and the fraud that's taking place, which is really outrageous. And these are people that served our country, gave up their livelihood.
Great sacrifices.
Yes, gave up their family time to help this country. And what we should be doing every day, not just Veterans Day, every day we see someone in uniform, telling them thank you, because they have sacrificed a lot for us, for our freedom, for this country. I mean, all you have to do is go outside of the United States and see what happens over there, the freedom that we have. the economic advantages that we have compared to other countries. They fought for that.
Well, and also I think that the veterans bring quite their entire life experience to the work environment. I think is really a great, they handle stress and pressure rather well, you know, and deal with difficulties, and they have a lot, I think, to share with the youth too. It's, you
Well,
know.
no question about that. One of my friend's daughters was, went to the Air Force Academy and came out and was a pilot. She went over to Iraq to, do the duty there. What she had to go through and coming back, it was an adjustment. And really, I didn't see the VA hospital really truly helping her as they should have. She's just now recovering to normalcy and doing something great. And fortunately, she's level now where she's going to be getting married, and she's happier. But before then, it was a real problem for her to really adjust.
But now that some of the difficulties that the VA system has had have been identified, I see a positive change in the administrative procedures and the attempts to address these problems. Wouldn't you agree, Henry?
I agree on the attempt, but the jury is out for me to see what happens. Right. I'm a business person. I like to see results. I've seen too many, when I play ball, too many people that are locker room ball players. They get out on the field and do absolutely nothing. So I'm waiting for the locker room talk to become action. When I see that, then I'll tell you.
So what are your last words on
My
Veterans Day?
last words is that we should recognize those veterans who have served, no matter in what capacity, and tell them thank you. We should be fighting for their rights, their privileges that they so heavenly deserve.
Thank you so much, Henry.
Mariana,
Appreciate
before
it.
we move on, if you
Well,
don't
we're
mind.
coming right to you, so.
Oh, good. I do want to follow up on what Barry was talking about. I work in more community medicine. I work at a community hospital. My wife works for the VA, but she works as a teledermatologist. And I'll tell you, they're bringing in new technology to try and deal with this issue of access. So I think you're right. The VA has heard. Clearly, they failed for some period of time. There's a whole new mandate out there. There's clearly more funding, as you brought up, Linna. They needed a significant amount of funding. That's happening right now. It's really a matter of how quickly can they turn it around.
That's the key.
And you're right about
so
it.
Kevin, you have this ability to talk about this because you are Chief Medical Officer. And what is the new name for Shady Grove now?
It's called Adventist Healthcare Shady Grove Medical Center. We're very proud. We've changed our name. We want people to understand we're a system of a couple of hospitals, and also we have new colors for our motto as well, blue and orange. For those who may be into sports teams, it looks sort of like the Denver Broncos. Very lovely colors. You have to see them.
Fantastic. And so winter's coming, you know, and
Here, yeah.
when we think of communicable diseases, generally it's the flu. But I know as you said once before, the 800-pound gorilla is Ebola. So tell us, are we safe? What is the hospital system doing? And
Clearly at Adventist Healthcare Shady Grove Medical Center, everyone's very safe. I think also for all the other hospitals, people are safe as well. People are concerned about Ebola, no question about that. We're doing everything to be prepared. We've been preparing since the middle of summer. The reality is that this is a disease that does not really affect America. It's a disease of West Africa and other parts of Africa. They've had outbreaks. But nonetheless, it's better safe than sorry. So we're doing everything to make sure that anyone who works at our hospital is going to be safe, but we're also doing everything to make sure anyone who has concerns about this, that when they come to our hospital, they will be very much safe. They don't have to worry about picking up any horrible disease like Ebola.
if I have actually been at the emergency room recently. So I come in and, you know, it's flu season. I don't want to come in for maybe an injury to my arm or something, and other people are there because they have the flu. So what are the guidelines? So how do you deal with that?
Well, first off, before you even get into our hospital, we have all of these little posts that are out there that have information about communicable diseases, talking about washing your hands. We actually have various stations around all of our doors, so we highly encourage washing your hands. It's amazing. A simple function like that is not done enough. but it's very helpful at preventing transmission of disease. So it starts right there. We have information to tell people how to actually possibly cough and sneeze. So coughing into your elbow is a safer way instead of your hand, because we tend to touch people with our hands. So that's the other thing. When people come also and they get registered, we have screening questions to ask people if we think they may have a highly communicable disease, and therefore we're able to put them in a safer place, an area of isolation where they wouldn't pass it on to other people.
I do have a question. The hand sanitizers that you see around, does that, how helpful is that as opposed to just washing your hands?
It's great. The alcohol-based ones, which are the ones that you want to use as long as you don't have any intolerance to alcohol-based cleaning products, they work very, very well. There are only a very few number of organisms that it won't take care of. So the vast majority of infections that we're worried about, those alcohol-based ones work great. They're great because you can put them in your pocket, you can have them in your car, you can have them with you everywhere, and it's good to use them quite frequently.
And the opportunity to talk about influenza brings up the basic issue of immunizations.
Yes.
Not only
very
for
good one, very.
influenza, but for other infectious diseases, and the importance, even for adults, in maintaining an appropriate level of immunization.
And Barry, you bring up a very important point there. In fact, at our hospital, and there's several others that do it as well, we require anyone who works in our hospital, including our doctors, to actually get vaccinated unless they have some intolerance to the vaccination. We feel it's not only in our own benefit, it helps us, but it also helps protect all of our patients, because there's some that are vulnerable to influenza, and we could easily give it to them, although we may not show it.
Well, first of all,
And
I hate needles. Second of all, you know, I heard these old wise tales about when you get flu shots, you automatically get in there. I know it's old wise tale, but my main thing is I hate needles, so the less I have to take, get a needle or not. But can I ask you a medical question?
It depends.
What's going to happen to the soldiers who are over in Africa now, helping setting up
Very good point.
the tents and everything else for the medical staff when they come back? What's
Sure. Well, I can't say specifically what their policy is, but generally what's happening with other healthcare workers that have been sent over to Africa, they do have protocols. First thing is you make sure you're safe. Many of the soldiers that are there are actually setting up the new Ebola treatment centers. So they're building the infrastructure that's necessary to take care of the patients. I can't say they're doing direct patient care.
No.
Those who are doing direct patient care, similar to what we do here, is they have the appropriate treatment.
Thank you so much. That's the last word for this break right now. We'll be back after these messages. And we're back. Linna Barnes.
Hi.
How is the League of Women Voters doing reviewing these programs regarding the children at risk in Montgomery County?
Well, as you know, the League every month has a program that they do about some sort of study they're doing. And more than a year ago, members of the League really decided that we needed to look at children at risk in Montgomery County, because we know that there are children out there that have a lot of problems.
Well, what risks are we talking about?
Well, a whole array of risks. I mean, you can think of the ones that become obvious: homelessness, lack of food insecurity, health issues, school, perhaps truancy. They're all those things. But then they're even beyond that. There are other risks, such as human trafficking. I don't think people realize that Montgomery County is one of the centers of human trafficking in the United States, because
Well,
it's
the United States, I believe, with Canada, are the top two source countries for the
trafficking.
recruitment, of
right, and
because
we're on the 95 corridor.
Right.
We're a very affluent community, the Washington D.C. area. Things are going on here that no one really is aware of.
Think about that. One of the wealthiest counties to have this occurring here.
Even
Exactly.
more so, the accessibility because of the main corridor is a problem, because you can go north, New York, and beyond, and you go south,
To all of that.
all
there-
that is
so
critical.
human trafficking is a terrible problem. Gangs. There are really numerous gangs in this county, and I think we many middle-class people in the county, affluent people in the county, really don't think about what all these challenges these children face.
They don't want to. You know, they don't want to realize that they have a problem like that in the county. This has been going on for years. And you have to understand that we have people coming from these foreign countries who have, you know, everyday life is nothing but war and chaos. So when they come over here, it's nothing like that. And they try to get together, galvanize as a people to protect themselves and to feel comfortable in adjustment. And when they do that, they're susceptible for bringing in other people who really don't have families, like the homeless children, or like the children that have some problems in schools, or not the support mechanisms that they need.
And people
So-
forget gangs are very organized.
Yes.
It's organized crime.
Well, it is.
You know,
It's a
people think of
family.
it as just this is something very informal, and but they have serious recruitment. They have serious ways of enticing and helping what seems like a solution for people who feel there are no
It's not as
solutions.
organized, like bullying. Is that an issue here in Montgomery
Bullying
County?
actually is one of the topics. It's not. This is going to be a two program issue. The first one is the one that's happening this month, now in November, is gangs, how the school system is dealing with all the issues they have, and human trafficking. In May, there'll be another program, and bullying is one of the topics in that one, because that is another topic. I mean, I think what the group that was studying this realized when they started was that it is an incredible problem. There are so many dynamics to it. Healthcare will be something else studied in May, the
It's a
access
tr- it's
to
a
it.
true
But as you define these issues, or the scope of these issues, then this will lead to recommendations in terms for possible solutions and so forth.
I think
for
that
the
is the
government.
hope. I mean, I think the idea, I don't think anybody realized when this came up as a topic, oh, I think there are real problems with children out there in Montgomery County. Let's look at this. I don't think people realize the extent of the depth that they would find the different things. So I think there probably will. I know Montgomery County has a gang task force, so that, you know, they really are trying to come to grips with this problem, with the police department involved in it, the schools, churches, the community groups. So it's looking at this and seeing where the gaps are and what can be added in.
It was two campaigns that my fraternity had, is feeding needy families, and the other one was mentoring, because dealing with the issue of bullying. And we found out that for the homeless, you would be surprised that the largest group of individuals who are homeless are children, not just adults, but children, and that was astonishing. And we looked at feeding, you know, needy families, and the majority of the families that we had to feed had 2 or more children in the household, single parent,
Well, that
and
is-
not just women, men, single family.
and that's the last word. He stole your last word, Linna.
Okay, it happens.
Very welcome. Tell us about
to be here.
Antietam Battlefield and these events that are going to be happening in December.
Well, I'm a student of Civil War history and a docent at the museum in Frederick, the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. And I just like this opportunity to remind folks that one of the more unique experiences here in Maryland is the memorial illumination at Antietam Battlefield, which will occur on Saturday, December 6th this year, starting at 6 p.m. And the
And what is that? What exactly for the uninitiated such as myself?
Antietam was one of the bloodiest conflicts during the Civil War, and as a matter of fact, the killed, wounded, and missing, some 23,000, represent the bloodiest day in the Civil War.
Wow.
And this is a memorialization, not a celebration, which allows you to tour the battlefield.
And
in the
there's a
dark.
website. I'm sorry to interrupt
The
you. We're going to
website-
put our website up
The
on
website is nps.gov/ANTI for Antietam.
Okay.
And the details will be available at that website about the illumination and whether or not weather causes it to be postponed a week or not.
And this is at night.
It's at night, starts at 6 p.m. You travel in a caravan of cars, guided tour through the battlefield, and there are luminaries, one for each of the casualties, placed at 10-foot centers throughout the battlefield. So you'll come over one hill and there'll be 5,000. You go over another hill and there's another 3,000. You realize
Amazing, yeah.
that these losses represent soldiers of an average age of 19 years.
You know, it's interesting, in England, in London, they just had a poppy field where they
Field.
put
Ceramic poppies.
ceramic poppies up to represent every casualty or every death in the British Isles in World War I, and it's around the Tower of London, and it's just this incredible display. I think there are 800,000. Because there were 800,000 military casualties, or not casualties, but deaths. And I think this is the same sort of thing where you actually see a visual that shows you what the loss was of these what 23,000 luminaries.
But also, you know, what's astonishing is how many are still missing.
Right.
Back in the Civil War, and the families that had to grieve without.
Without
Yeah.
knowing what
Yeah.
happened.
One of the other opportunities there is represented by the Pry Field Hospital, which is on site and represents a collaboration between the National Park Service and the museum in Frederick. That will be open. That was McClellan's headquarters, but it was also used as a historic hospital after the battle to treat both sides. And the barn, a 100-year-old barn that is a 150-year-old barn that has just been refurbished. Approximately 80% of it is period structure.
Wow.
Was also used, and so that will be open that afternoon, as it is every Saturday and Sunday this time of year.
That must be an amazing experience to walk through that barn
It
and that
is.
house and have
It's
a
history
small
that you
feeling of
could
what
read.
happened.
Do they have
And
the
you just
instruments
reach out
that
and-
they used?
Yes,
They do.
they do.
That's amazing.
I've always just thought about what those field hospitals must have been like. It's just because
Rough.
without anesthesia,
Rough.
really, I mean,
Well, they
just-
had anesthesia, and
Liquor.
anesthesia was either ether or chloroform. In most of the cases, the old fairy tales of bite the bullet and so forth are probably not true, but many of the advances that were experienced in Civil War medicine are the underpinning of what we do in modern medicine, particularly in the battlefield today.
I can imagine.
With the
Keeps me-
triage, with the triaging. Yeah.
One last chance to say that really exciting news this week from the Civil War Trust, where, having been asked by the National Park Service to expand their efforts beyond the Civil War and start a process which has been very successful in saving Civil War battlefields, expand that process to now begin to acquire property and structures from the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, which is leveraging off of one success to, I'm sure, ensure success elsewhere. So I just like to encourage folks, most people don't know about the illumination. Take advantage of this special opportunity to visit Antietam in the dark and to see what's really a moving experience, as you have said. It's hard to appreciate the number lost. It's hard to appreciate those who never came home or who came home maimed in much the same way that today's battlefield warriors do in many instances, and the needs and how they were met in the past at that point.
Thank you so much for coming and telling us about Antietam. I
And
hope
our
we'll have
pleasure.
you back with more information about the Civil War. Thank you, all of you, for joining me this week, and thank you for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Weekend Review. I'm Mariana Cordier.